Go ahead.
It's so funny. Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome to Progressive
Welcome
Soup.
to Progressive Soup. My name is Emily Wolfen-Testa. I'm here with David Stevenson, and today our guest is Al Robinson.
Hello.
And tell us a little about yourself. We're talking about social media today.
Social media, yeah. My name is Al Robinson. I've been blogging. I have several websites, but the one I'm well known for in the Danbury area is Hat City Blog. I started that back in July of 2005. I also, in 2005, before Hat City Blog, I did this blog called Connecticut Blog, which was a knockoff of a site that I read a lot during that time called America Blog. Prior to me starting my blogs, the 2004 election happened. It was John Kerry versus George Bush.
Right.
And blogs just came onto the scene primarily because of a lot of very active Democrats at that time who wanted to get their voice out and counter the noise machine that we have from the right. So Daily Kos came out of that. America Blog came out of that. My DD came out of that as well. So I said, since there isn't anything like that happening in Connecticut, why don't I just start a blog called Connecticut Blog?
Right.
And during that time also, immigration became a big issue in Danbury.
Yeah.
A lot of misinformation coming from the mayor himself in regards to issues surrounding immigration. So I said, I should start a blog in Danbury because it's a really it's a hot topic.
Right.
So I started Hat City Blog because of that, and also because I knew the mayor was lying about a lot of stuff that he was saying.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why I started the blog, and I guess that started my my trip down the road of social media, which is a lot different than what we have right now with Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
You didn't have those things back in 2005. So the whole social media is continuously evolving.
Yes.
And so I'm also now on Twitter, also now on Facebook, because as a blogger, you got to stay ahead of the times.
Right, right.
Because people are now no longer reading blogs anymore. They're reading Twitter feeds, Facebook entries.
Right.
So the world of blogging has changed a little bit.
Right.
So, but it's still a lot of fun to do, and I enjoy it every day. You have to enjoy it every day because it's a lot of work.
Right,
it's a lot of work.
Right. Huh.
But at the same time, you've got a connection to the Danbury News-Times. Correct?
Yes. I guess because of my writings that I did over the I guess 3 or 4 years, especially on issues surrounding things that are happening at City Hall. One of the things that I really felt uncomfortable with was that when you read the Danbury News-Times, you really don't get a local perspective on what's happening. You don't know what's happening at City Hall. There's no coverage of like ad hoc committee meetings or educational meetings or things that people should really be aware of, especially land use meetings, because development is a big issue in Danbury, and one day you can have an empty lot in your neighborhood, next thing you know, get turned into a Dunkin' Donuts. You have no idea how that happened.
Wow.
So I felt it was important to go to land use meetings, not only attend them, but videotape the meetings.
Right.
And offer my opinion, but also offer the public an opportunity to actually see and witness what's happening in these land use meetings.
Right.
So I guess because of all that work I did, and I was a pretty active writer, and I was pretty well known, the Danbury News-Times gave me the opportunity to do an online commentary on their website. So I also do that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw an article in the Danbury News-Times today about them putting up these apartment buildings.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the Kennedy Park.
Right.
The apartments over there. I wrote about that several years ago.
Right.
When the first attempt by BRT to put those same type of units up over there actually wound up failing, but the city of Danbury gave BRT a 7-year tax break, which meant that you didn't have to pay property taxes for 7 years. And that was just not only that property at Kennedy, but also a property over on Crosby Street. We call it the Big Green Monster.
Right.
He had a 7-year tax break, and I think free sewer and water hookups as well, which is a lot of money. And when he proposed that particular unit, he said that property was going to go towards young adults.
Right.
To entice people to come back downtown, and if you bring the people downtown, the theory was that if you bring people downtown, your businesses will come.
Right, right.
And what wound up happening is after he got the deal, he, instead of making it for young adults, he turned it into a dormitory.
Oh.
And in my opinion, he made a lot more money offer putting students in there.
Right.
Yeah, there was
While
supposed to be a
getting a tax break, and the tax break was not supposed to go towards that purpose. So I'm still very skeptical about the property at Kennedy Park.
Right.
I don't think it's going to work. I think it's a bad idea. I think it could have been. There's other uses for that. Especially, I don't think we should be giving tax breaks to the residential developers. We should be giving tax breaks to people who bring jobs downtown.
Right. Yeah.
Giving tax breaks to people who bring businesses downtown. You know, there's so many businesses that popped up downtown that really owners worked their tails off to open up shop downtown,
Right.
only to be just completely discouraged. Not only by City Hall, but by the parking authority over their overbearing nature of hitting people with tickets who are parked a little too long in the meters.
Right.
Yeah, they've got a guy downtown that's pretty vigilant about that.
Yeah, and
People, whenever I park there, people will warn me. They'll say, "Hey, babe, make sure you don't let the meter expire, because Joe will come down and he'll get you a minute later."
so I mean, the thing is, you know, I like to write about things like that.
Right.
Those are things of interest. Those are things that are not being covered in the newspaper.
Right, yeah.
Issues that would be of concern to people.
Right.
And one of the things that I like to do with my my writings is that I'll offer my opinion, and I say this all the time. I'll
Right.
offer my opinion. I got a pretty strong opinion.
Right.
But what I like to do is I like to offer, for instance, we go to a land use meeting. Let's go back to the Dunkin' Donuts in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Let's say there's a planning commission meeting that
Right.
is about that particular lot that's going to be changed into a Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
I'll say, hey, that Dunkin' Donuts is just awful. It's a terrible thing to do, you know. But what I'll do is I'll offer you, my reader, and a chance to watch the entire meeting, so you can form your own opinion.
Right.
That's something that is still not really done to this day, and I wish it would be done. I really wish we had a government channel on Comcast, a Channel 24 with a city of Danbury, with somebody who was really serious about it, unlike this current mayor.
Right.
Really serious about covering land use meetings, education meetings, because the education budget takes up at least 60% of the entire city budget.
Right.
So most of your tax dollars are going towards education. You should know what's happening in your schools.
Of course, yeah.
Definitely know, especially with Common Core and all these other wild things that are happening
Right,
right now.
right.
Land use, again, you should know what's happening to your land.
Right.
And if you don't like something, you should know about it, so you can go
Right.
down there and voice your
Right.
opposition or support for these proposals.
Right.
But unfortunately, right now, we live in a city where a lot of things are being done in secret,
Right.
or you know, you barely even notice a meeting happening.
Right.
And your councilmen are not very good in terms of informing their public about things that are happening in their own particular neighborhoods, because the councilmen are just there to just say yes to the mayor.
Right.
They're not really there for us, the residents. So it's incumbent upon, I felt it was incumbent upon myself to go down to these meetings,
Right.
cover these meetings, and give people an opportunity to actually see city government really at work,
Right,
so they can
right.
form a proper opinion about who you vote for in the next election.
Right.
Yeah, I remember how the property on Crosby Street, the apartments there was a cap on the percentage of tenants that could be students, that could be WestCon students, and somehow that got lost in the shuffle.
Oh, the whole thing with BRT was just a travesty. It was a travesty from the beginning. You know, the guy, Mr. Bertram, came in and said he's going to do this thing for young adults. And as soon as it gets approved, he's like, "Oh, I can't do anything. I can't bring any people down here." And he turns it into a dormitory. And if you know anything about dormitories, you can put, let's say you have a one-bedroom unit.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a one-bedroom unit. That means you can get two people in that one bedroom. So it means more money for you.
Exactly.
Especially two college students.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two college students in one bedroom.
Yeah.
2 bedrooms, that's 4 people.
Yeah.
You know, so you do the math. And he's getting tax breaks, ridiculous tax breaks,
Right.
in order to do this. And I still feel it's very unfair for that to happen. I think it's extremely unfair that Kennedy Park has been given a tax break. I don't think it deserves a tax break. I don't think residential development is going to work there anyway, because you have Crosby, you have Kennedy Park, and then you have Elm Street. And then you have the Dorsey Day House, and then you have prostitution and drug uses all over in that area. And what are you going to do?
Right.
You got to do something about that. You got these residential luxury apartments next to some of the roughest areas in Danbury.
I know. Yeah.
It's not going to be a good mix.
No.
So we'll see what happens with that, but I don't think it's very good. I wish, you know, if it was me, I'm going to Newport in a couple of weeks. I love Newport. And if you've ever been to Newport, when you come into Newport, right by the American Way, as soon as you come in, you look to the left, It's a nice little baseball diamond.
Right.
You know, it would have been nice to put some type of nice usage like that, like a nice baseball diamond or something like that over in that area. In my personal opinion, I think the fire department and the police department should have been put over there in that area right there, as opposed to the big mausoleum we have right down the street. But since that ship has already sailed off, we can do some more recreational use for that property. And that would bring more families and people down to enjoy themselves in downtown Danbury, and that might encourage more businesses as well. But, you know, again, the leadership of the city feels otherwise, and they can continue to give tax breaks and freebies to their buddies, who in turn give campaign contributions back to them. So it's a deadly cycle. The only way we can get things changed is when we remove the current mayor out of office.
Do you think that the farmers market down there in season, do you think that'll get squeezed out when they do that?
No, I think the farmers market wasn't that bad. I mean, I enjoyed myself down there, and I don't think it will go away. I mean, there's a lot of effort to do good things for downtown. You know, the problem is it's like Groundhog Day. These things that we're doing right now, these proposals that we have right now, are the same proposals we heard 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I've been hearing the same thing over and over again. It's just got different names to it. Again, I don't think much is going to get done downtown. The only way things are going to change downtown is with new leadership at City Hall. I think this mayor is a complete failure when it comes to downtown. He cares more about the west side of Danbury, overdeveloping Mill Plain Road with ridiculous businesses, while not expanding Mill Plain Road to accommodate the additional traffic that you're bringing in because of all these businesses. Try going down Mill Plain Road or I-84 down that area on Friday, let's say around 5 o'clock, and you'll see what I mean. It's a nightmare. And it wasn't like that, let's say, in the mid to late 1990s.
There were quite a few fewer strip malls down there.
It was a lot less. You know, there was a Connecticut limousine down there, and a truck stop down there, and a lot different now. And it's just irresponsible development. Either you have irresponsible development on the west side, or you have nice examples of irresponsible development in certain areas of Danbury, such as Elmer's Diner, an absolutely idiotic place to put a diner at. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. It was supposed to be Ann's place, but because of loopholes and a lot of slickness from Mr. Palmer himself, he was able to get that business in there, and then he didn't have the adequate parking to accommodate his diner. So he ran into problems immediately. Now he found a temporary fix to it because he bought the place next door, but that's only a temporary fix. Again, irresponsible development. It got in under the radar. People didn't know about it because people don't pay enough attention to what's happening at City Hall because they just don't know. So I like to fill that void by going to City Hall, going to these meetings and videotaping and speaking out about this. It's very important to speak out about these issues, because if you don't speak out, you know, it's like ignorance begets monsters. You know, if you don't know, you're going to make an unwise choice. That's why I like social media. I love social media a lot. Social media nowadays is even better, because I thought back in 2005 doing blogs was like instantaneous. And now it isn't. That's considered slow. You know, now blogs now are considered the equivalent of like a black and white TV. That's how bad it is. Now it's about Twitter, instantaneous commentary that everybody can see instantaneously.
Instagram and
but little snippets of information rather than full articles. Is something lost in that?
No, absolutely not, because you can do snippets of information. And unlike a blog, where you got to go www.hatcityblog.com to get to see what's going on, or especially if you have a live blog, which means you're doing updates constantly. Let's say I'm doing a meeting and I want to give you instant commentary about this meeting. If I did it on my blog, you have to hit the refresh button all the time to see my additional commentary. With Twitter, you don't need to come to my website because you already subscribe to my account, so you'll see it on your timeline feed constantly. And then if I want to attribute something to my writing, to my commentary, like, hey, you know, this is a real stupid idea, read why. And I'll put a link there. You click on the link, and it'll take you to my blog.
So you can expand on what the information is.
I'm talking about.
Okay, so you can expand.
Twitter is really, it's very exciting. And it's growing more and more every day. They're adding new features to it. You add Vine, you add Instagram. You bring along video content that way. Facebook is just amazing. I love Facebook, but I use Twitter more for instant access to information, because if you do that on Facebook, it gets to be a little bothersome after a while. But no, Twitter is great. that new social media, I like to call it Web 2.0 type of media. Really, really instantaneous, real fast. And if you have a really good issue and you do it on a Twitter feed, you'll get a lot of followers. So it's very exciting. We're at a very exciting time in social media right now.
Wow.
So you can get the word out a lot quicker and
Instantaneously.
and give people the opportunity to go elsewhere, to link to something else, to get a more complete story or a video that they can actually see an entire meeting.
Yeah, well here's a perfect example. The Sandy Hook shootings.
Right.
That day was the day when the mayor did his city address, and I was awoken by sources saying, "Hey, something really bad happened," and they were giving me information about what was going on. Say, "Look, you really have to monitor this stuff because there's going to be a lot of misinformation out here, and it's a very, very bad situation."
Turns out there was an awful lot of people putting crazy ideas out.
Right.
Red-eyed people put out stories about how it was staged.
Yeah. Well, what I was doing was I was providing, at least to the best of my ability, on my Twitter feed, up-to-date information about what was happening. And I would also say, hey, this is unverified, this is verified, this is unverified, this is verified. So people knew when they were hearing all these other rumors and stuff, oh, that's unverified. And then when I would come through and verify this, you know, the rest of the media would catch up later on and say, oh, he's right. So it plays an important role in terms of getting information out there, although it could be abused at times. But in that particular situation, it was great because we were able to supply the public with information about what was happening in a way that was responsible, that was sensitive to people. You know, I didn't want to discuss certain elements of the situation because, you know, parents weren't notified at the time, and it was very, very sensitive. But it's good to provide that information because people are going to be looking for information they want to, and you want to provide them the most accurate information as possible, especially when they're in a sensitive situation like that.
And what were your what was verifying your information? Did you have sources at the scene, or where were you getting your
I really
information?
can't get into how I verify things or my sources like that. It's something that, you know,
of course.
people in journalism don't do.
Right,
It's smart not to do that, or else you might lose your sources.
Right,
That really hasn't changed. That really hasn't changed through the years of media, where you have people that provide you information, and you know who you can trust, to give you proper.
Of course, that's the way it's always been. It's always been in journalism. You'd be amazed the type of sources you can have. I would say in Danbury alone, I have a lot of sources on both sides of the political aisle. A lot of sources in various departments, and you know, they provide accurate and very good information upon items that are very important to the residents of Danbury, and I make sure that I provide that information and forward it on to the people. There's a reason why they're telling me this stuff.
Right.
You know, and of course, it's to be. I verify that stuff, make sure it's legit, and then I come out with it. A lot of stories that you see in the News-Times, several stories like you see in the News-Times, can reflect back upon my pitching stories to the News-Times, saying, "Hey, look, you might want to look into this. I heard this from this," and that's the way journalism works. But with social media, you are able to get that information out to the public immediately. Like right now, it's 5 o'clock. I know we're taping here, so it's going to come out later on. But it's around 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. An hour ago was the deadline for Mark Boughton to submit his petitions for running for governor. Now, if I was covering the city, I would be down at City Hall right now, keeping a close eye on one of the most corrupt individuals in Danbury, Mary Ann Dorn, who's the Register of Voters for the Republicans, and make sure and monitor and make sure that she's doing her job correctly. Because, as you know, Mark Boughton is running for governor, and he needs to get enough signatures so his running mate can get on the ballot. Now, if he's running for governor and he's a Republican, he's in Danbury, a majority of his signatures are going to be coming from Danbury. And you want to make sure that every T was crossed and every I was dotted. Because if anybody knows the history of Mary Ann Dorn, you would understand that you might want to keep a close eye on what's going on here. But then again, that's where social media can come in. If I'm there on the scene, I'll be snapping pictures and giving commentary, and you'll be seeing on my Twitter feed. See exactly what was happening in the process. That's kind of like what happened in, somewhat what happened in Bridgeport 4 years ago with the race for governor. There was people on the scene watching the Register of Voters do their job and reporting back on what was happening. You know, that's the type of instantaneous media coverage you don't normally get from traditional TV
Right.
or newspapers because they just don't have the time to do it.
Right.
Yeah, so 4 years ago, I remember in Bridgeport, they were undersupplied
Yeah.
with ballots. They did not have nearly enough ballots
Yes.
for everybody that wanted to vote to be able to vote.
Right.
And penny wise, pound foolish. They were apparently they just didn't want to release the funds to pay for the ballots that they needed, and because of that, it caused a big hoopla at the end where they had to extend poll hours because you had these long lines of people, and they had to get a supply of ballots brought in so
was a
that all these
nightmare.
people were able to actually vote.
It was a nightmare.
And you can make a case for or against there being reasons behind that happening, or was it just foolishness on somebody's part?
No, it was complete incompetence. It was complete incompetence.
Underordering.
It was complete incompetence by the register of voters in Bridgeport, a Democrat. I'll reserve her. I won't give out her name right now, but she's a terrible individual. She shouldn't be a register of voter in Bridgeport. She's the equivalent of Mary Ann Dorn here in Danbury. And again, if you want to look up Mary Ann Dorn, type in the word Mary Ann Dorn, Hat City blog. You learn everything about that individual. She's famous for what she's done in
That's a
the city.
tough job, and it requires a lot of diligence and a lot of responsibility. And if people aren't doing, that's a job where people can really cause a lot of problems if they don't do
terrible.
the job properly.
Terrible problems. It's democracy right there. I mean, you're registering to vote.
Right.
there. Your registration information is right there, and you can really have a tough problem, like you at the wrong polling place, or your address is wrong, or there's a million things that can go wrong. So it's very important. That position is probably one of the most important positions in a municipality because it's talking about your vote and your right to vote. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't mess around when it comes to voting.
Right.
So
Yeah, we get out and make sure. I used to be there 6 o'clock in the morning every election day, but I'm not quite that diligent anymore. But I get out there and vote.
yeah, it's important
It's
to
an
do.
important responsibility.
And another thing when it comes to voting on voting days, I used to, and I probably will get back into it now, but I'm a little older now. I'm going to try to pony off some of my responsibility to the next generation of kids and help others, especially students at WestCon, learn about journalism by coming on board with the site and expanding Hat City Blog to be more than just a blog, but that's a little down the road. With voting, I used to go to each one of the voting wards, voting polling places, and I would go there and just say, here's the turnout. This is what the turnout looks like.
Yeah.
This is how many people have come to vote so far. And again, just to give people updated information on the turnout, because turnout is very important. Low turnout usually goes for the incumbents. High turnout usually goes for the challengers. And in certain races in the past, it was really important. Like 2006 was a very important election when Ned Lamont beat Joe Lieberman. When Chris Murphy beat Nancy Johnson. Those were very important elections. That was a very big time in terms of Connecticut, in terms of the Democratic Party. And it was a lot of fun to cover that stuff. 2008, when Barack Obama became president, that was one of the most insane moments in my life. And I was there covering, going to the polling places, talking to people, getting their feedback on why they came out to vote. I'm not saying not like exit polling, but what's your feeling? How do you feel about the state of the city, the state of the state, and the state of the country? That type of information, again, you don't usually traditionally get from local media in terms of television and newspaper. But my advantage is because I'm right there on the scene, and it's instantaneous because I'm videotaping it, I'm posting it, and then boom, you're watching it and you're reading it. And that's the exciting. That's why social media is so exciting if used properly.
Right.
And it's a good reminder to people that if it slipped their mind to vote.
To get out and vote.
It's a good exactly. It's a good reminder that hey, don't miss the boat.
Yeah, you can
It
make
rhymes. Don't miss the boat.
Come out and vote.
Get out and vote.
Yeah, well, I hope in Bethel they'll come out in a couple of days and vote on the 12th for the budget because it's a disgrace that the last budget vote, the turnout was so incredibly low. It was just you're spending the people in Bethel have a long, rich history of being a bunch of whiners and complaining a lot. Terrible whiners. Complain about anything. Based upon who is in power at the time.
I'm not
the
going to say
Bethel Action Committee.
I won't speak to that point. But there's a lot of complaining.
You complain all the time, but yet you don't come out to vote, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Small town politics is certainly interesting.
Yeah, it's been interesting in Bethel for a very long time.
Although we passed budgets last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 or 6 years in a row on the first go round. But this year we just missed.
Just myth. I think everything will be okay this time, but you never know.
And then we're just talking about the medical marijuana dispensary that just opened and the decision was made so quickly. I just thought of it when you talked about how businesses and government and like what's approved and how that, and then people this just seemed to have slipped under the radar.
Well, see, that's another great thing, and it's so funny right here because a lot of whiners again are whining about this. Because first of all, look, I travel to Bethel a lot. I see a lot of people in Bethel. They have a very easy time just yammering.
Right.
And most of the complaints had nothing to do with the business. They were talking about marijuana itself. Now they'll come out now and say, "Oh, we're not about medical marijuana, about this facility." No, it's nonsense. They're about marijuana. Period. Medical marijuana is settled law. It is the law of the land. Period.
Right.
I don't care how you feel about the subject. It's legal to do it.
Right.
It's legal to set up shop. These people, the process was completely right. But what happens again, like I said earlier, when you have a parking lot that's just, you have a lot that's just a lot one day, and the next thing you know, it turns into Dunkin' Donuts the next day. Like, hey, what happened?
Right.
Well, no, shame on you for not knowing what's going on.
Right.
Do we have to hold you by the hand and tell you where the meetings are at? Mm-hmm. So now all these people are yammering and whining. It's NIMBY nonsense.
Yeah.
Not in my backyard. We're working to get people on both sides of that marijuana issue here at the table to conduct a reasonable discussion about the different aspects of it.
I think it's simple. I think it's really simple. Look, it's settled law. That debate's done. These people who are whining about this right now, too late. You're done. Stop whining about it and stop masking it by saying, "Oh, we're not about medical marijuana. We're about this facility." The facility was done correctly.
Right.
And personally, if it was me, I might file a lawsuit because I think it's getting to the point of just like getting really, really crazy what they're saying out there. It was done legally. There was no shortcuts done. It was a legal process. The meeting was open to the public. If you missed it, too bad. And again, given Bethel, knowing Bethel the way I do, if the rhetoric would keep going, if I was a business owner, I'd sue them.
Right.
Because now you're slandering me and you're slandering my business.
Well, Emily and I will hear a lot more about that in an upcoming episode when we have the two sides hopefully together at the table, hopefully carrying out a reasonable discussion without any, none of the back and forth yak, but some real good discussion on the pros and the cons of it. And everybody they'll be able to air their grievances and get the word out to support why they believe the way they believe, and again, let people hear both sides, and I think it'll settle out that ultimately people will be okay with it. But there's, as you mentioned, a lot of fear out there on the part of people that live in the adjacent neighborhood.
Well, the problem again is just rampant misinformation. I know that we know the common characters here. Okay. It's misinformation and it's rhetoric from a lot of the people. When you have people spreading misinformation, that creates fear.
Right.
Well, I'm going to take one quick. There we go. Sorry, we had our soup. Okay. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Stevenson, Emily Volpatesta, my co-host, and our esteemed guest, Al Robinson, Hat City Blog, My Left Nutmeg. My Left Nutmeg site.
Catchy, huh?
Yeah.
And a number of other points out there. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.